Welcome to another episode of Ghoul Talk Legends, Pen Pal Edition. In this episode, David will expand our curiosities, wondering who is Bella in the Wych Elm. Oh, sorry, I'll just be 1 second. I'm just booking a flight to England because this story that David's about to tell, I need to see it in person. I'm sure he won't mind me just showing up and crashing on his couch, so see you Friday, David. Wish. But anyways, this story that David's about to tell is one that I've heard come up in conversation from time to time and have come across it online when I've been researching other cases and never really knew a whole lot about it, but I was always wanting to know more. So I'm really excited to hear David explain the tale about Bella in the Wych Elm.
April the 18th, 1943. Hagley Woods, located approximately 15 miles from England's second city, Birmingham. Dusk was slowly creeping across the land, and four young boys, Bob Farmer, Robert Hart, Thomas Willits, and Fred Payne, had been hunting for birds' eggs. Coming across an ancient wych elm tree, 15-year-old Bob Farmer climbed up the trunk. He could have had no idea what grotesque secret he was about to discover. A mystery that still to this day has never been truly resolved. The mystery of who put Bella in the wych elm. As the adventurous teen reached the top of what was essentially a hollow trunk, he glanced down into the dark wooden enclosure. Staring up with vacant, lifeless eyes, a skull greeted his unexpecting gaze. Initially believing that the skull was that of an animal, he took it out, only to replace it shortly after, as the hair and teeth told a different story. Spluttering out the discovery to his young cohorts, they all hurriedly set off to their respective homes. The land they had been on near Witchbury Hill was part of the Hagley estate, belonging to Lord Cobham, and the boys had in fact been trespassing. For fear of being punished, the boys remained silent about the gruesome discovery. Willits, however, who was the youngest of the friends, felt concerned about what he'd witnessed and told his parents. The police were informed, and upon further investigation, they not only discovered the aforementioned skull, but also a nearly complete skeleton, along with a shoe, some tattered clothing remains, and a gold ring. The skull itself, though missing a few teeth, had a clear dental pattern and would prove an invaluable source of evidence, as would some attached hair. Strangely, the body was incomplete in that a hand was missing, though the remains of it were found a short distance away. A Professor James Webster was given the task of forensically examining the body for any further clues as to the identity of the corpse. He established that it was the body of a female, aged between 30 to 40, who had probably been dead for approximately 18 months, placing the time of death roughly October 1941. Having also discovered a piece of taffeta in the skull's mouth and no visible signs of disease or illness, the professor ruled that the death was murder by asphyxiation. He also deduced that based on the measurements of the tree trunk, the body was likely inserted there while still warm, as the onset of rigor mortis would have prevented placement later. The police had a good idea as to the appearance of the woman based on the items found and details from the coroner, including specific irregularities of the lower jawbone and what appeared to be a tooth extraction from her lower right jaw that had taken place within a year of her death. These details were published in dental journals but produced no response, and due to the immense number of missing persons reported during those war-torn times, searching records for a proper identification would have proved to be a futile task. They did, however, cross-reference the details with local missing persons, but once again, nothing matched the evidence. The press at that time referred to the case as the Tree Murder Riddle. Shortly after, around the Christmas period of 1943, graffiti started appearing on numerous buildings around the West Midlands area, including Upper Dean Street, Birmingham, initially showing up as who put Lou Bella down the Wych Elm, and who put Bella down the Wych Elm, Hagley Wood, and finally, who put Bella in the Wych Elm, which appeared on the nearby Hagley obelisk during the 1970s, and though cleaned off, periodically reappears every so often. Over the subsequent years, there have been many theories as to the identity of the victim. Back in 1944, a Birmingham sex worker spoke to the local police about a potential victim. In the report, she spoke of another sex worker who frequented the Hagley Road and had disappeared 3 years earlier. The name Bella gave indication that the person writing the graffiti was very likely aware of the identity of the victim. In 1953, a second possibility came about after a statement was made to the police by a Mrs. Una Mossop. She claimed that her ex-husband, a Mr. Jack Mossop, had confessed to family members that one night whilst meeting a Dutchman named Van Ralt at nearby Littleton Arms pub, the two men encountered a woman. She became drunk as the night wore on, so they gave her a lift. Due to being intoxicated, she passed out in the car. The two men decided to place the woman in the tree. He explained that they wanted her to wake in the morning and hopefully be so frightened to see the apparent error in her ways. Jack Mossop was committed to Staffordshire Mental Hospital. He claims to have had recurrent traumatic dreams involving a woman staring at him from a hollow tree trunk. Mossop passed away in the hospital before the body was found, and the validity of the explanation was brought highly into question, as Mrs. Mossop only mentioned her ex-husband's confession some 10 years after his demise. Another common yet recently disproven theory concerned the agent Joseph Jacobs. Jacobs was a German military intelligence agent who parachuted into Cambridgeshire in 1941 but broke his ankle and was captured by the local Home Guard. Upon being arrested, he was found to have on his person a photograph of Clara Burrell. She was a cabaret singer and actor, and apparently the love of his life. He alleged that she was being trained as a spy, and, had he made contact, could have been sent over to rendezvous with him. As mentioned, this theory was debunked, as no evidence suggests that she ever parachuted into England, and Miss Burrell was described as being over 6 feet in height. He found in the Wych Elm measured 5 foot. In September 2016, it was determined after much investigation that Clara Burrell had passed away on the 16th of December 1942. A more radical theory was put forward by University College anthropologist Margaret Murray in 1945. She proposed that the body could have potentially been the product of witchcraft, a belief stemming from the practice referred to as the Hand of Glory, in which a hand was severed during a ritual of the occult. The local press became excited by this theory and led investigators to the notion of a similar, possibly ritualistic killing of Mr. Charles Watson on Mayon Hill nearby. He was found impaled to the ground by a pitchfork. There were seemingly many significant elements to indicate links to possible satanic or black magic practices and possibly tying both murders. The hand removed from the Wych Elm victim had been found 13 paces from the skeletal remains. This was an ancient custom used when a witch was executed. The fact that the Wych Elm was used also bore relevance to the black arts. Also to consider was the name, as belladonna was the ancient name for deadly nightshade, a plant that once again was closely associated with black magic. Some skeptics argue the case that the witchcraft and devil worship elements were merely fabricated as a so-called smokescreen by MI5. In 1953, yet another theory surfaced, this time that the body may have belonged to a Dutch lady by the name of Clarabella Dronkers, who had been killed by a spy ring for allegedly knowing too much. There was, however, nothing to support this idea. To this day, both the true identity of the victim and the killer remain unknown. That said, as recently as 2018, a facial reconstruction was made of Bella by Professor Caroline Wilkinson, an expert in craniofacial identification at Dundee University. She had previously been tasked with rebuilding the face of Richard III when his remains were discovered under a Leicestershire car park. The process of creating Bella, however, would prove to be a lot more challenging, as the actual skull was lost some time ago by the police. It had been housed at a forensics lab in Birmingham, then moved to the police city base a few miles away, but its whereabouts are now unknown. Quite a strange irony that the victim's remains are now as elusive as her identity itself. But who knows, perhaps this recent reconstruction will produce conclusive answers, and finally we'll discover who put Bella in the Wych Elm.
Alright, there's a lot to unpack here. There's a lot of very interesting theories about this story, and just very conflicting, and really any of them could be a possibility. Aside from some of the DNA testing we could do right now, which might not even take us down much further of a path, but it's just such a peculiar case. So I dove into some research on this case, trying to see if there's any credible stories on paranormal encounters around Bella. And a lot of the sightings, I would say, I don't feel are that credible. The stories seem to be very vague, have a lot of holes in them. There's no consistency. But what I normally look for in credible stories, I haven't found so far. What I do find really interesting is more of the energy, the stories around the energy that's in this area and surrounding the location of the tree. The stories seem to be pretty consistent, that there's a very dark, heavy, oppressive energy that just surrounds and encompasses this area. And when people come to view this particular spot, it just seems to like fog. And the stories seem to be pretty consistent about feeling watched. And not like a person is standing in the trees watching them, like they're being surrounded. And it just creates a lot of unease and discomfort and anxiety, and people just want to leave. I don't really want to say it's a haunting. It's more of a spiritual presence, something that possibly could be conjured. Whatever the reason was behind it, creates just this black awfulness. Could be linked to possible witchcraft. That is pretty common with the surrounding feeling, the darkness. Again, there's two types of witchcrafts, but this does have some possible ties to like darker practices, as it would seem. And it could just be the natural elements as well, just surrounding and almost like hiding the history. That could be as well. There's a lot of possibilities here. It's really hard to say, but I'd be very curious to go there and investigate, and I'm sure that the team would be as well. However, this would be a very, very challenging and almost impossible case to link historical relevance. Just because there really isn't any associated to this case. We just don't know. It would be quite interesting if there ever could be any ties made to that. In Celtic beliefs, Wych Elms are associated with the gateway to the underworld. They're usually considered like either forming an archway or the pillars to the gateway to the underworld or to another realm. So to me, that makes me wonder if somebody knew that, and if it was purposeful why she was put in that particular tree, or was it just coincidence and the murderer just happened to pick that tree that had some significance to the underworld advanced. I could very well see symbolism there, links to practices, both good that had gone wrong and darker practices that could be linked to magic or witchcraft practices. I just can't see a simple murder of somebody deciding to take it that far and put somebody's body in the tree as they did. Most murderers, like unless they're trying to make a major statement, won't do something like that. They usually just want to get rid of the body as best as they can and get out of the picture. I mean, what are the odds too that you would just happen to like kill somebody and come across this tree and just be like, oh hey, and just seems like a great option, right? It just seems a little bit too premeditated. So I do feel that there's way more to the story. I feel like there was some purpose. There's some significance to the tree, I really feel. As for now, the story remains. Who is Bella in the Wych Elm?